Good morning and welcome back to our Friday PR Daily Transmission. Every Friday, we take your questions live, and I am just thrilled that we get to focus again on leadership and our connection to Mary Magdalene and the Order of Magdalena. Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Lovely to see you in the chat. Feel free to introduce yourself, share where you're watching live from. If you're watching the video replay, you can introduce yourself in the comment fields. We love, we love reading your comments. We love learning about you. And one of the bonuses of doing these lives on YouTube is that we get to know you here through social media. And then when we meet you live, like at our upcoming event in Austin, Texas, May 2nd to the 4th, we know who you are. We've been talking to you all along. So it's really fun to get to know you here so that, we're not strangers when we meet for the first time at our live events. So welcome. Good morning. Hi, everyone. Good morning, Team Angels. Today we have Taryn Rose, who helps us with our events. You can always jump on the phone and ask her questions about Austin. We also have our beautiful Team Angel, Lindsay. Good morning, Lindsay. And we have several Sophia Circle leaders, such as Damien, who just jumped on the chat. And if you are a Sophia Circle leader, go ahead and share your name and where you lead from. Sophia Circle journeys are journeys you can go on through the Sophia Code with a certified facilitator. And you can find our directory at my website, kaira.com. Hi, good morning. Hello. So today is Friday Q&A, and we've been journeying with the Mary Magdalene's teachings from the Sophia Code all week long. Yesterday, we were focusing on a Magdalene, Joan of Arc, and it was so interesting because I wasn't even intending on necessarily focusing that much on Joan, but it came through right before the live that that's what I was supposed to do. And wouldn't you know it, but I also had some meetings with our team members in France later that day, discussing some really cool things coming up for us for our French community. And we'll be sharing those announcements soon. Good morning. So it was like all things French yesterday for me. And today, in honor of that, I'm wearing the Joan of Arc Rosary that I designed. And what's interesting about this rosary, the reason why I chose the white and the gold for this rosary is because Joan's armor was white and gold. And that was extremely unusual, given that only royalty was allowed to have white and gold armor. So when the king commissioned Joan to be able to have her armor made, isn't it interesting that it was made as white armor with gold accents? And yeah, that just kind of points to maybe the story that we've heard about Joan is not completely what we think it is. Hint, hint. So as I wear this rosary today, I'm just feeling that joy that I felt when I knew this was coming into form, because there's nothing that gets my fire going more than the oppression of the divine feminine. And, the way Joan as a Magdalene served the sovereignty of her people was so powerful. That was such an all-consuming form of leadership that to then have, the very people that she was serving turn against her and end her life. That's such a symbolic of what has happened to divine feminine consciousness across the ages. And so for me, creating this rosary in honor of Joan's life and in honor of her as a spiritual guide that supports our sovereign empowerment from the higher realms now, to me, it's like a full reclamation of divine feminine power. And it's saying, we know who our leaders are. We know the principles that Joan was living from, because they live within us as well. And, as I shared yesterday, Joan had an extremely wide range of emotions. She was crazy psychic, like super, super psychic. I mean, that's one of the things she's most known for. And so in that intuitive, open state that she lived in, she could feel everybody's feelings, not just her own. And so there was a lot of negotiation as a leader for her about what was her feelings and what were the feelings of the people that she was leading, and learning how to discern between the two so that she could, most effectively honor her own heart and her own vision. So I just love wearing this rosary, and really mysterious things happen to me internally when I wear this rosary. I base the design of the centerpiece on a statue in Paris that I had a profound experience with Joan at this cathedral. And of course, we have the Ankh of Life that is, for me, it's a symbol of eternal life, which I like far more than a crucifix, which was a form of Roman torture. Just saying, again, another way of reclaiming divine feminine Christ consciousness and encoding that into jewelry that, gets to activate your body as you wear it. So thanks for letting me share about this. It was, I guess, because of reconnecting with everyone in France yesterday, just really coming up for me. And we're going to be sharing in our upcoming Magdalene Rising ceremony next Wednesday, this beautiful thread of consciousness that runs from, ancient Egypt into that mystic Essene lineage of Mary Magdalene and Jesus' family, and then which was carried right into France and then on into Europe. And so there's just a lot of weaving that's happening here in our consciousness as we journey together through these KR Daily transmissions. I want to thank you for being open to receiving the weaving of that dragon magic, to witnessing the Magdalene rising within you over these past 2 weeks in preparation for our incredible channeled ceremony. And if you haven't signed up yet, the link should be in the chat and of course in the video description. So thanks for letting me share a little bit about that as we've been getting everybody here online gathered for today's Q&A. And I believe that little bit of a share about Joan's leadership is the perfect kind of foundational setup for us to discuss today's question that came in. And I'm just reading it from my phone. The question for YouTube Live that I got from my team, I don't know who this person was that wrote in, but they shared, I find it difficult to speak my truth for fear of creating disharmony in my group of friends. How do I move past this fear? Wow, I'm so grateful for this question. So whoever wrote it in, thank you so much for having the courage to share your question with us so that everyone here in our community could benefit from your question. So I find it difficult to speak my truth for fear of creating disharmony in my group of friends. One of the beautiful principles of Magdalene leadership is that Mary Magdalene mentors us in a discernment of how to speak our truth with grace, timing, divine timing. And also she guides us in the understanding that not everyone is ready for our truth. And so she also shows us how to embody that truth without having to convince anyone of it. So if you have a group of friends where there is an ongoing dynamic that may be codependent in nature, right? Because if there's an unspoken agreement that we only talk about certain things versus other things, then you might want to ask yourself, what are the unspoken agreements in this group of friends? Or what are the unspoken agreements between you and just a single friend? What are the unspoken agreements that you might have between you and your partner that have not been communicated out loud, where you are able to express, I feel uncomfortable agreeing to this unspoken agreement? It's when we break the silence and name out loud the unspoken agreements that are keeping harmony, which is another word to say keeping everyone in codependence, it's when we're able to speak to the space, not even the truth, when we're able to speak to the dynamic of, I would like to share something with you, but I don't know if it's actually welcomed for me to share that in this space. And I want to respect that if this isn't a topic you want to talk about, then I can talk about this with another friend or with other people. But friendships is a really great place where we can practice our leadership. And honestly, it's funny I use the word honestly. Friendships, like if the foundation of your friendship is in honesty, you want to look at, is this an honest friendship? And there's a full spectrum of how we relate to others. There's the full spectrum of depth of where we can go with certain individuals. Like some people are more of an acquaintance. They're more of a surface connection that's enjoyable and that we can, delight in that level of our ability to connect with them. And then that's where it ends. There's an end cap to it. There's the unspoken agreements of we only go this far together in our connection. And then there's, other relationships where we do know in our hearts that the person that we're meeting is, or that we're connecting to, there is a wider range of depth that we can be honest with them. We can share more of who we are with them. And does that mean that friendships that are more, they have less of a bandwidth aren't friendships? Well, I think that's for each and every one of us to decide individually. I enjoy having a wide range of people in my life that have a wide range of beliefs. I also deeply, deeply cherish those people that I can go as deep as I want to. But my capacity for depth is really unusual. So it is unique. To have the expectation that every one of my friendships is going to be able to go that deep it's not reasonable. And that's okay. Like if we can appreciate people and love people from a sovereign space where we identify, oh, that's their capacity, and they're going to let me know when their capacity wants to grow with me. And we choose to focus on the people and relationships and nurture those relationships that we do feel the greatest sense of joy and connection with. And how do we do that? It's by checking in and sharing with those people that you do want to invest more time and energy with, and saying, hey, I appreciate our friendship so much. I would like to speak to this feeling as though we have an agreement that we don't talk about certain subjects in our friendship. And if that's true, I want to confirm that so that I know that, and I don't have to feel as though I'm hiding something from you, where we've already made the agreement that these are the subjects we talk about and these are the subjects that I talk about with someone else. And in that, in that journey, you get to love people where they're at. You get to love where you're at, and you get to disengage, unplug from codependency, where you're expecting certain people to be a certain way for you when they don't even have the capacity for that, excuse me, at that chapter in their life. And again, no judgment. It's just like everyone has a different bandwidth and capacity at different times in their life. So if you practice being honest with your own capacity, your own depth, your own desires, your own prayer for friendship, what happens is it creates a space of truthfulness. It creates a spaciousness of sovereignty where you get to take yourself off the hook of trying to be someone or something for someone else for a friendship that only has a certain bandwidth, and it allows you to pivot and focus on friendships or new relationships that have a greater bandwidth for depth and connection, and topics that maybe your other friends don't have that ability to speak to you in that way. So this is really a huge topic about sovereignty versus codependency in your leadership. And we practice our leadership happens both in our personal lives as well as our professional lives. Like leadership is an archetype of growth that once you start to dedicate and commit yourself to leading and being of service, you identify that pretty much everything about life is either choosing to show up and lead or to follow. And to just, not even to follow, but like to just let life happen to you instead of being a part of co-creating with life what it is you want to experience in your reality. And it's like parenthood is leadership, like marriage is leadership, being in your friendships, in these interpersonal dynamic relationships, that requires leadership. It requires the sobriety of showing up to your sovereignty. And no one is a better mentor for opening up your throat and speaking your honest perspective. It doesn't even have to be a truth where your truth is better than someone else's truth. It's like opening up your voice to speak a clear perspective that creates a new sovereign space for your relationships to continually go higher and higher and higher in their sovereign divine love. As you choose to set the bar of transparency with your friends, your loved ones, what happens is you give them an opportunity to expand and meet you in a new place. If you continually buy into the lower bar of codependency and you keep meeting your loved ones there, where you're just playing into these unspoken agreements, that's called codependency. And you're not leading, you're just buying into what always has been. Leadership is always becoming dynamically and creatively engaged in the present moment so you can keep raising the bar of consciousness, because ultimately you want to surround yourself with people that want to grow with you. That doesn't mean we have to abandon or ignore those who don't want to grow with you, but there is a natural thing that happens in evolution that as you keep raising the bar, for yourself, like those who don't want to be in that resonance of where you're going, they're going to naturally step back, which creates the space for other people to meet you, maybe for the first time, to step forward. And this is why there are chapters in the journey of friendship, co-working relationships, romantic partnerships, even marriages. And it's opening up our hearts to understand that if our prayer is to live in our sovereign potential, that's going to keep our feet to the fire of, am I showing up dynamically, creatively? Am I speaking out loud the truth of these unspoken agreements between myself and others so that we can get really clear about what we do want to co-create together? Linda is asking in the chat, what about family? This is all, it's all connected. Like I mentioned, marriage and partnership, this, friendships, co-working, you could absolutely include siblings or your parents or any other family member into this conversation. It's like, it's all connected. And someone else is writing in, family isn't always family. And, I'd like to share that, we get to choose our family in adulthood, and some of the strongest growth curves are when we examine the codependent dynamics with family members. Those are some of the most powerful codependent dynamics to unplug from, to practice our sovereignty. And sometimes this will create rifts or even periods of time away from family members. But that doesn't have, although it can bring up a lot of emotions, it doesn't have to be personal. Like it can all be for the understanding that ultimately you can choose an unspoken family agreement that keeps you miserable for the rest of your life, or you can choose the joy and the liberation of your sovereignty, knowing that through divine love, whether it's in this lifetime or another, family members can be reconciled with one another. Maybe not on our timeline, but always on God's timeline. So Shmi, this is a perfect question that's coming up in the chat. Shmiata is sharing, I'm going through a lot of tough emotions with my family and showing up, speaking our truth. Wait, excuse me, the chat's showing me. I'm going through a lot of tough emotions with my family who don't believe in my spiritual mission. I think this is a perfect segue to bring today's question into that topic of leadership. Thank you, Shmirta, for sharing that. I hope I'm saying your name correctly, and if not, please forgive me. So this is where you can really call upon Joan as one of the Magdalenes to guide you beyond challenging family dynamics to single-pointedly follow the vision of your heart. You know, we choose a blood family for a reason. We choose the dynamics of what we are arrived to this planet with for a reason. But then as we grow into adulthood, we can choose our spiritual family. We can choose people that are aligned with our mission, such as in partnerships or marriages or on the community that we surround ourselves with. You know, are we starting our own businesses, which is very much like creating a spiritual container that supports your mission this lifetime. And it does require expanding our ideas of what family is and who we are in relationship to family. If you are trying to prove yourself to family members to convince them of something that you are literally engaged in, honestly, in a codependent dynamic. And the sovereign approach to this is understanding that your mission is unique to you, and the journey of self-love is accepting your mission and supporting your own mission, getting on your own team, regardless of how anyone else feels about it, especially your family. And over time, the more that you embody your mission, the more that you remain committed to it, and the more that you start to show like, hey, this is how I'm succeeding both in my personal and my professional life, because I am choosing to follow my heart. Those family members that you are meant to stay connected to over the course of your lifetime, they will come around. They will identify and recognize. They may not understand everything about your mission, but they will recognize that what you're doing is valuable for you and even valuable to others in your service. People can respect people who are whole enough to identify if something good is happening. They can meet you there. So for example, there's a lot of people that do not understand my mission. But what they see is they see that there are lives changing from me following how unique my mission is. They witness of like, wow, there are so many people being empowered all around the world, moving from trauma into their soul power. Like she might use a lot of like languaging that I don't understand, but there is goodness here, and she's showing up to help as many people as she can. And so is her team. So even if I don't understand what's going on here, there's clearly people benefiting from it, and I can get on board with that. It's like, I don't care who gets it or not. I love it when we have, spiritual leaders in our community that are like, I totally get what you're doing, and I want to be a part of this, like with the Sophia Circle Leadership Ministry, because it's fun to play in the same consciousness together. But I have no desire to convince anyone of anything. I find that completely disinteresting and boring. To me, what's way more fascinating is when I'm resonating at a consciousness, the creativity of these ascended masters is pouring through me along with my higher self, and it inspires and activates a similar creativity and a similar Christ consciousness within others. And we're like, cool, let's go. We're soul family. Let's do this, right? It's like, it's an invitation. It's not like, I'm going to convince you of this thing. So, whenever you witness yourself trying to convince your best friends or your family members or your neighbor or your coworkers about like, oh, I believe in this thing, whatever your thing is, a Sophia code or otherwise, like, it's not about that. It's about believing in yourself so deeply, loving yourself so deeply that those who are in a similar resonance with you, they're going to find you and they're going to want to co-create with you. And the joy of discovering that you can magnetize others that are like-minded light workers, such as yourself, it frees your heart and it opens your heart to love your loved ones that are, they're never going to understand you potentially in that way, but they will understand. But if they're open-minded enough, they will understand the goodness of you, and that you are applying your goodness and your willingness to serve others in a way that's right for you. And then it was like, we can love people from a distance. Not everybody has to come along for the ride, like buried into your bosom, right? Like divine love is way bigger than the codependent constraints and kind of ways that we imprison each other in these relationships, when really relationships, true and whole relationships, are about creating space, creating enough space where we can love ourselves and each other with a whole lot more acceptance, unconditional love for where each of us are standing in our journey. It's like, I bless every single person that I'm no longer in constant contact with, that I've been on a journey with. They were a part of my journey and I'm a part of theirs. And we, the memories and the love between us, or even the hard lessons between us, it's like, it became a part of who I am today. And I feel nothing but gratitude. And that comes after years of confronting within me, where am I codependently not speaking about the unspoken agreements that have held me and maybe this other person or other people hostage? And how do I speak unspoken agreements into the space that creates higher and more creative and dynamic expressions of sovereignty for me to thrive? And for others to thrive exactly where we want to be in our lives in this moment. I just love the conversation that's happening in the chat. I love where everybody is choosing to lean into, this concept that friendship is a dynamic to practice leadership. And leadership is not about convincing anyone of anything. Leadership is about creating the sacred sovereign space where unspoken agreements can be cleared and made and articulated and agreed upon consciously, and where we choose to meet with those that we have the opportunity to raise the bar and say, meet me here. I want to be in a dynamic, unconditionally loving, creative space with you. Here's my invitation. I'll be here when you're ready. And also that if you do have friendships that are, maybe don't have the same kind of depth that you're hoping for in friendship, that's okay too. There's certain people, say I don't know, maybe you're in a photography club, or maybe you just love going on hikes with, a group of people in your city or town that just like to hike and talk about, the mountain, nature, and that's as far as they're going to go. It's like what happened at work and how good the fresh air feels. And it's like, those friendships are great too, as long as we're not attempting to bend or manipulate people into something different. That is up to you to create through your own sovereign intention, to create that kind of depth of friendship, of people, connections with family members, coworkers, that it's up to you to create that sacred space that invites new people in, or invites people to raise the bar for themselves and co-create with you in a new way. How is this landing for you? If you'd like to share an insight that's coming through for you regarding today's Q&A, I have a few minutes here left that I can read from the chat. Let's see. Okay. You just raised my joy. I'm so happy to hear that we're all raising our joy together. Yeah, Linda's sharing, knowing myself lights the way ahead. Unicorn is sharing, I never thought about friendship as an opportunity for leadership. This perspective is empowering. Samantha is sharing, it's exhausting if you try to convince others of anything and it doesn't feel authentic. 1,000,000%. Thanks for sharing that, Samantha. Let's see. Trying to go to the bottom. Let's see. Yes. Magdalene Media is sharing, my own unspoken agreement with my own child. Yeah, there's so many ways that we create unspoken agreements that create a lot of discomfort and codependency between ourselves and our loved ones. Damien is sharing, sacred alignment is happening now. Oh, I'm so grateful to read these thoughts. So if you are watching on the replay, feel free to share your comments in the video replay as well. And, let's just take a moment in closing to invoke Mary Magdalene and Joan of Arc and Jesus to create this trinity of support for you all weekend long in preparation for our Magdalene Rising ceremony next Wednesday on April 13th. And I'm just really feeling Joan and Magdalene coming in on your right and left side, and they're placing their hands on the back of your heart together so that you can feel the power of your angel wings unfurling. And I'm witnessing Jesus standing in front of each of us, just sending his blessings and his support to your sacred heart. And they're inviting you to be curious about how they are supporting you all weekend long, to be brave enough to negotiate this edge within yourself of, am I in codependency in this moment? Or where could I create that sovereign space of leadership in my most personal relationships? Where can I create new sovereign space where we can have dynamic conversations that aren't about right or wrong, but are about becoming very transparent and honest with one another, which always leads to empowerment and always leads to greater unconditional love. This is exactly what Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and Joan of Arc embodied for so many people, both personally and of course, collectively. And so I give thanks for these beautiful ascended masters and the saints of the Order of Magdalena, knowing that this angelic order that you and I are a part of goes forth with you, blessing your weekend and guiding you all weekend long, and how to embody your higher self, how to stand in your power through self-love, self-acceptance, getting on your own team, opening your heart to greater experiences of connection and success through that sovereignty, as the old scales of codependency just shed and fall away this weekend in preparation for our Magdalene Rising ceremony. I'm so glad that we got to come together this morning to talk about such a dynamic subject matter, excuse me. And if you haven't signed up for the Magdalene Rising ceremony, we have the link in the chat and in the video description. And I look forward to being with you live for 2 hours of pure channeled space and higher self activations. And we're doing huge giveaways too, which I'm so excited about. I believe we definitely have some giveaways connected to Austin. We've got, I'm going to be live in Austin for our Sovereign Spiritual Leadership Immersive. That's from May 2nd to the 4th, with an additional Prosperity Fire ceremony happening on the 5th. And we're going to be also with our Sophia Circle leaders who are going to be helping us lead those fire ceremonies. It's going to be such an incredible dynamic space focused on the topics of sovereignty, the underbelly of leadership, and how we can all rise up at this time to fully embrace our highest potential. And not to mention the step up to the mic sessions that are going to be unfolding. And we actually received a question about that. Given this Q&A, I'm going to share a little bit more about it. We've gotten so many questions about Austin where people are asking, do I have to come up and be behind the microphone if I attend the immersive? And the answer is no, you don't have to step up to the mic with Kaia Ra. I would love to be on stage with you and workshop that mic space with you, but everyone who's in attendance is going to benefit from whoever ends up on stage. So, I mean, it wouldn't even be possible to get everybody up to the mic in that short amount of time, but I can promise you this. Whoever steps up to the mic, number one, is going to rock your world and your professional leadership in such a huge way. But it's such a dynamic, multidimensional space that one person getting activated on stage we are all joined in that collective activation. There isn't going to be a moment, not even a single moment, that you're not learning and being upgraded and connecting and releasing and empowering your own unique angelic mission at the Sovereign Spiritual Leadership Immersive that's coming up in Austin. So I hope you can join us. I'm like starting to get so excited that I can barely handle it, because I just love doing live events. I love connecting with our community in person. It brings me to my edges to be producing events like this in the post-pandemic world, but there is something so profoundly magical that happens when our team produces these live events that we just haven't stopped. I mean, we've had to pivot and maneuver due to the past 2 years of crazy in the world, but we're still producing events because the quantum leap that happens for our community members and our leaders when we gather live is so exponential. How do we say no to that? And so what I'm really excited about this year's venue, which we've never done before quite this way, is it's this beautiful wedding venue inside, kind of on the outskirts of Austin. It's like beautiful grounds with this gorgeous fire pit. We're going to be in this super fancy renovated barn with like chandeliers. It's just gonna be gorgeous. So we're gonna have a stage, and it's gonna be intimate and cozy, and it's just going to be, we've already gathered such an exceptional group of leaders that are going to be there. It's going to be absolutely life-changing, a moment that if you can be there with us live, you're not going to want to miss this. It's so special. So yeah, that's a little bit about that. And I just want to announce that we got so many questions about the Stargate 2 curriculum this week that we're doing a flash sale on that spiritual leadership curriculum, which is such a rich resource of classes and content, written content. Like I think there's 13 PDFs of written channel content on leadership, and tons of mentor Q&A. There's just a wealth of information there, as well as a private forum. So if you've been curious about how to go deeper with our mystery school curriculums for your journey of leadership, that Stargate 2 curriculum is an exceptional opportunity to get the fire started and get you ready for the Fire Dragon teachings live that are going to be unfolding in Austin, Texas. So I love you all so much. Thanks for letting me share a little bit more about what's happening and all the ways that we are just wanting to serve you so deeply with these tools, these very powerful spiritual tools, so that you can feel how connected you are in your leadership to all of our leadership worldwide. Like, we are not alone. We are literally co-creating this new sovereign paradigm together. And fortunately, the Sophia Code Mystery School has a vast array of curriculums to support us in every step of that multidimensional empowerment that needs to happen on every level of our being to fully self-actualize and realize our sovereign divinity in human form. So thanks for letting me share about everything that we've been working so hard to bring forward for you. I hope you have a beautiful and blessed weekend, and we'll see you back here live on Monday at Kaia Ra Official for the KR Daily Transmission. Thank you for liking this video, sharing it with your friends and community members, and for subscribing to my channel. All my love to you always. See you.